Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. It's good to be with you here on this evening of Friday, January 16th. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Here at KSC, we are less than 12 hours away from the emergence of the Space Launch System rocket topped with the Orion spacecraft named Integrity, the ride for the first crewed mission in the Artemis program. Taking a live look right now at the vehicle assembly building where you can see the Artemis 2 mission patch design projected onto the iconic building here at KSC. The door to the right in this frame is where the rocket will emerge. Doors open at around 1 o'clock tomorrow morning, local time here in Florida, with first motion for the SLS atop the mobile launcher and crawler transporter 2 set for 7 a.m. Eastern, 1200 UTC. It'll take about an hour for the rocket just to emerge from the building, so slow going at the beginning and honestly slow going all the way out the 4 miles to the pad. It'll take the better part of half a day for the rocket to reach its destination, which is Launch Complex 39B. The crawler transporter will be moving at a blistering speed of less than 1 mile per hour. So for folks that are across the river over in Titusville and in places like the the Canaveral National Seashore, there are some good spots to try and stake out throughout the course of the morning. See the rocket make its journey out to the pad. Of course, though, if you want the best possible views, you've come to the right place. Just go ahead and set your alarms. We've got our live stream up and ready for you. We start our broadcast at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, about 30 minutes prior to the start of the rocket's movement inside the VAB. And that'll be the start of our really ramping up into the continuous coverage for the Artemis 2 mission, as we'll have views provided for you once the rocket does leave the VAB. We'll have those for you here on the channel until launch day, whenever that ends up being. We'll, of course, have much more to say about the Artemis 2 mission during our dedicated rollout coverage tomorrow morning. Again, that begins at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel, now's a good time to do so. Ring that bell icon, turn on notifications for whatever device you like to watch YouTube on. That way you'll be made aware when we do start that stream. And we'll be joined by a friend of the channel and our former colleague, Mr. Stephen Clark, now a space reporter over at Ars Technica, as well as another special guest who I'll have to wait to see who that is once we get into coverage. For now, though, let's focus back on activities out in California, where we are currently just under 26 minutes away from the T0 liftoff time of the Falcon 9 rocket, set to carry an undisclosed number of what are believed to be Starshield satellites on behalf of the National Reconnaissance Office, or the NRO. This will be the first mission of the year supporting what the reconnaissance or intelligence gathering agency describes as its proliferated architecture, what it aims to be a series of hundreds of satellites in orbit designed for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. All of these proliferated architecture missions to date have launched on SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets, beginning with the NRO 146 mission, which lifted off back on May 22nd of 2024. There are expected to be about half a dozen of these proliferated architecture mission launches in calendar year 2026. Last year, we saw the lion's share of these missions launch at the beginning of the year, so we'll see how busy Vandenberg is with this flurry of launches in this year. We don't have live views of the rocket just yet, as we're 24 minutes out. We should have had views in about 14 minutes, but if you take a look, here is the rocket that's going to be flying on today's mission, as captured and shared by SpaceX. The Falcon booster that is flying today has the tail number B1100. This will be just its second trip to space and back. Its previous outing was back in late November when it launched the Starlink Group 11-30 mission, landing on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. This go around, SpaceX will be recovering its booster not on a drone ship, but back on land. About 7.5 minutes after liftoff, the booster will touch down at Landing Zone 4, or LZ4. A successful booster recovery at that site would be the 33rd time that SpaceX landed one of its Falcon first stages there. So for folks in the vicinity of Vandenberg, you may hear a sonic boom as the rocket goes up and a sonic boom as the rocket comes back. So you might want to make your friends and neighbors aware who are adjacent to the flight path here. SpaceX is in the midst of fueling its Falcon 9 rocket as we speak at 22 minutes, 24 seconds out, which means that if there were to be an issue, weather or otherwise, SpaceX would have to stand down from this launch opportunity and pivot their 24-hour backup. If the rocket doesn't launch tonight, the 35-minute window tomorrow, Saturday, January 17th, would open up at 8:04 p.m. Pacific, 11:04 p.m. Eastern, 04:04 UTC. As we're getting further into the count, I want to thank the more than 3,500 of you who are with us live tonight. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into our live coverage here. Want to thank our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube who help make this and every other live launch opportunity possible. Thanks in particular to one of our channel members, Kimus Granatus, for being available to help answer folks' questions throughout the course of the broadcast. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com, where you can find things like the Artemis 2 mission patch and the mission patch for the recently returned Crew 11. Channel membership also affords you access to our members-only Discord server and the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. So thanks to folks in our community like Rocket Girl, Kathy Ware, M. Teresa, Michael Cisneros, Sulfur for Lunch, and many, many others. Last little bit of housekeeping as we're just passing the 20-minute mark. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings-on in the realm of space or spaceflight, or just want to offer a little bit of support for the channel tonight, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature. Not only will it be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll also be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that my friends, as always. Greatly appreciated. And apologies, it disappeared in the chat before I had a chance to address it. I did see what looked like either someone gifting channel memberships or a membership month marker, but it has since disappeared, and I apologize for not getting to it fast enough, but I will just thank our channel member community once again for your enduring support. Before we get into the countdown timeline, just quickly want to thank a couple folks. Karen Fry for the $5 super chat. Karen. Also, thank you to Michael McRory. Says it'll be nice to see a vehicle once again at Launch Complex 39B. Agreed. And thanks to Michael Cisneros for a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate the support at that level. Coming back to pre-launch activities here for SpaceX in the run-up to the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. Let's go ahead and talk about the countdown timeline for this mission, what SpaceX has already completed and what's still ahead before the liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. Of course, the SpaceX launch director has already given their go for the start of prop load, which began at the T-minus 35-minute mark with a loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen began to flow on board the rocket's booster. Half an hour before flight, about 30 minutes before liftoff is when SpaceX started to load cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage and did the same for the second stage a few minutes after that. The helium is used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. Right now, we're just at the tail end of SpaceX thermally conditioning the feed lines, the start of liquid oxygen load, which will begin in now roughly 30 seconds. Coming up after that will be the chill down of the 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the booster. SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps to protect those engines from thermal shock and damage during startup. About 6 minutes out, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strong back. First, the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strong back, will recline a few degrees away from the Falcon, or 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket here at Vandenberg. And here at Vandy, it stays in that position up to and through liftoff. About 3 minutes before takeoff, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full, and same will be true on the second stage about a minute after that, at which point the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Then on the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is entered into its automated startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will then give their confirmation that they are go for launch at T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, currently targeting that at 8:39 p.m. Pacific, 11:39 p.m. Eastern, 04:39 UTC, or just about 14.5 minutes from now. Time now, T minus 12 minutes, 57 seconds, and counting. Taking a quick peek back at the live chat here. Thanks to the Kaiser 2023 for the $5 super chat. Kind words here. His words, not mine. The famous Will giving us great commentary as always. Hi to all the mods. Hope you're all well. Go SpaceX and go Falcon 9. Godspeed. Very kind of you, the Kaiser. I'm Lita, one of our channel members with a $5 super chat. Saying hello and thanks for all you do. Good to see you, Lita. Another Michael Dorn this time, 2541 with a also very generous $20 super chat. Saying hello from Redondo Beach from Nick Cuts. Thanks to Amy Rose as well for the $5 super chat. Much appreciated. I want to thank Michael McRoy for a $5 super chat as well, asking how many active Falcon 9 boosters does SpaceX have in its inventory now? By our count, there's 26, I believe, that they've got in service, with the oldest of those being the 1063, which began flying in November of 2020. However, B-1067 is the most flown, beginning its flight career in June of 2021, but has flown 32 times in total. We should be getting views here of the Falcon 9 rocket. So just briefly want to touch on the trajectory for this mission here. Falcon 9 rocket will be lifting off from Space Launch Complex 4 East here at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Upon leaving the pad, it will fly in a south easterly trajectory, with the first stage booster performing a flip maneuver and a return for a landing back at landing zone 4. Successful touchdown today would be the 33rd landing at LZ4 and the 560th booster landing for SpaceX to date. The company will also be recovering the payload fairings a little bit further down the range. They'll be scooped up and put on a SpaceX recovery vessel, brought back in through the port of Long Beach, and off to SpaceX facilities where they will be refurbished and turned around for future missions. As you can see, we've got views of the Falcon 9 rocket here at Space Launch Complex 4 East now. The SpaceX commentator notes that the range is ready to support, and they are continuing to track towards a liftoff here. 0% possibility for launch constraints from a weather perspective. Regarding the payload fairings that SpaceX is highlighting, one of those is flying for its 30th time, the other for its 13th time, according to SpaceX. Moving down for the payload fairings, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, powered by that single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust. Its nozzle is nestled inside the inner stage, a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. For those who weren't here at the start of our broadcast, the booster flying today is B1100, which will make its second flight today. Falcon 9 rocket powered by 9 Merlin 1D engines, burning a combination of RP1, a rocket-grade kerosene, and liquid oxygen to produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. As we're just about 5.5 minutes before liftoff, the Falcon 9 first stage booster has reached flight levels regarding the RP1 tank.
Strong back retract has started.
Good call there. Right about at the 4-minute mark in time, we should actually see, yeah, there's the clamp arms and the transporter erector, or the strong back, the large truss structure next to the rocket, will recline away from the Falcon 9 about 13 degrees away. It'll stay in that position up to and through liftoff. Coming up to the end of fueling for the Falcon 9 rocket here at T-minus 3 minutes will be the end of loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's booster, followed by LOX load wrapping up on the second stage at about T-minus 2 minutes.
Looking ahead a little bit, at T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will enter startup. From that point on, the rocket's onboard flight computers...
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
As you just heard there, we have completed the LOX loading on the first stage.
Again, we should hear a confirmation for the conclusion of LOX load on the rocket's second stage in roughly 30 seconds or so. SpaceX commentator notes that they are tracking no issues on the launch vehicle. Still good news there.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. As we have just about a minute and a half remaining on the clock, we're going to keep our focus on the fueling. You're seeing the ground gas closeouts here, the venting out of the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines there at the pad. Also want to quickly thank the more than 10,000 of you who are watching along with us live. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button to give some more folks a chance to find their way into our coverage in the final minute ahead of liftoff.
Standing by now for confirmation that
Falcon 9 is in startup.
As you just heard, Falcon 9 is now in startup.
Standing by for confirmation that the launch director is go for launch.
LD is go for launch.
And with that good call, we're going to step back on our commentary, listen along with you for the final 30 seconds, and join you back on the other side of liftoff.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go NRO 105.
Falcon is pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressures are nominal.
At T plus 33 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has lifted off from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. In just a few seconds, we'll throttle the engines down in preparation for Max Q, which stands for Maximum Dynamic Pressure.
Power and telemetry nominal.
It's the moment in the launch where the vehicle experiences the greatest mechanical stresses,
Vehicle is supersonic.
the most that it will see during its ascent. To help go from vertical to horizontal, the first stage will be performing a maneuver known as a
Max
gravity.
Q.
And there's Max Q. Falcon 9 has just passed through Max Q. The rocket typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back to Earth
MVAC chill.
and get into orbit. As you just heard, we're chilling the MVAC engines in preparation for stage separation. So we now have several events coming up in quick succession, and we should hear all of them called out by Mission Control, starting with main engine cutoff, or MECO, then stage separation, stage 1 flip, SES-1, and the boost back burn. MECO is where we shut down all 9 M1D engines on the first stage. Stage separation is where the first and second stages of Falcon separate from one another. Stage 1 flip is when the booster uses its nitrogen gas thrusters to flip the booster around. Depending on the mission, Falcon may perform a fast or slow flip. Today, the booster will perform a fast flip because it will be returning to land.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed. MVAC startup.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
And confirmation for that series of events, which again were MECO, stage separation, stage 1 flip, SES-1, and the boost back burn. Coming up next will be fairing separation in about 30 seconds. The fairing will jettison from the second stage, as it is no longer needed to protect the payload once we are in space. As mentioned earlier, we will be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves once they fall back to Earth. We should be hearing that call out any second now.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there's that good call out for fairing separation.
Boost back shutdown.
And there you just heard shutdown of that boost back burn. We're now 3 minutes and 30 seconds into today's mission, and the next major milestone is coming up at T plus 6 minutes, when you should see the first stage's entry burn on your screen. To start the entry burn, we will relight 3 M1D engines on the first stage, starting with the center engine, known as E9, followed shortly after by the E1 and E5 engines. The booster engine graphic on the lower left-hand corner of the screen displays the arrangement of the 9 M1D engines, with an outer ring of 8 and the center 9th engine. These are held in place on the vehicle by a structure called the octaweb, and 3 will light up during the incoming entry burn. The entry burn is similar to pumping the brakes to slow down the vehicle as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. We need to do this to slow down and reduce the re-entry forces, which then helps us recover and reuse the first stage. During the entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but the vehicle is still moving quite fast. This causes it to fly through Merlin's exhaust engines, also known as the rocket's plume, which deposits a layer of soot on the vehicle's surface. That soot comes from the carbon-based fuel, RP-1, that Falcon 9 uses. With each flight, that layer of soot builds up a little bit more on the surface of the vehicle, and that's why our flight-proven vehicles look the way that they do. We are just under a minute away from the beginning of the entry burn. On the left side of your screen, you can see the first stage decelerating and making its way back to Earth. The first stage is not only using the Merlin engines during re-entry and landing process, it also uses its titanium grid fins and nitrogen gas thrusters for stability and control. Again, Falcon 9 will be attempting to re-land today at Landing Zone 4 at Vandenberg Space Force Base. And again, at the request of our customer, we will not be displaying views of Stage 2 today. We are roughly 15 seconds away from the beginning of the entry burn. As a reminder, Falcon 9 will relight just 3 of the 9 M1D engines for this brief entry burn.
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
Good confirmation of the entry burn startup, lasting less than 30 seconds in duration. Some good views from the tracking cameras on the ground. The shutdown of the entry burn here. Coming up next is the single engine landing burn, which will take the booster B1100 down to soft touchdown at landing zone 4. Landing burn set to begin at about T plus 7 minutes and 12 seconds, with a touchdown less than 30 seconds after that.
This is the final burn that this vehicle will see before safely touching down back at Landing Zone 4 at Vandenberg Space Force Base.
Landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And as you just heard on your screen, we have successfully landed. This was our 560th booster landing for SpaceX. This is also the second launch and landing for this first stage.
We're going to be wrapping up here with the SpaceX views here in just a moment. Second stage Merlin vacuum engine has shut down. Is now into its first coast phase. Again, at the request of the National Reconnaissance Office, there will not be live updates provided about the mission, but a confirmation some point after the fact will be issued by the NRO to confirm a successful deployment of however many satellites are actually on board here. With that, we're going to go ahead and turn to our mission stats as they currently stand. With a good liftoff and landing, that marked the end of flight number 2 for Falcon booster tail number 1100. This was SpaceX's 589th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 7th of the year so far. This was also the company's 523rd Falcon booster reflight, with the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was SpaceX's 164th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 173rd orbital flight for SpaceX from this launch pad, and the 241st overall orbital launch from Slick 4 East as well. Here's a bar chart representation of the Falcon launches. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 33rd landing at Landing Zone 4. the 102nd SpaceX landing on land, and the 560th overall booster landing for SpaceX. Of course, this is the 561st landing of an orbital class rocket around the world, including Blue Origin's Never Tell Me the Odds booster. Finally, with some mission industry stats, this was the 3rd orbital launch from California this year, the 7th from U.S. soil, the 7th from a U.S. rocket company, and as we were stepping through coverage, just making sure our stats were fully up to date, this was the 14th orbital launch around the world. Here's where the pie chart currently stands. And so we'll just note here that the 6th launch, which happened within the past hour, is reportedly the debut flight of Chinese company Galactic Energy's Series 2 rocket. There are some preliminary reports that the inaugural flight of that rocket was unsuccessful, but we're waiting for some more information to confirm that that is in fact the case. But there are some additional reports of the failure of the Series 2. So for now, the first confirmed failure actually came earlier today as well on another Chinese-built rocket, the Long March 3B, which took flight at 16:55 UTC. So unfortunately, a not good day for orbital space flight there in China, with both government and a commercial rocket both experiencing in-flight failures, but not a lot of information out there right now to give us good color as to what exactly happened on either. So we'll see if we can suss out more about that and bring you updates as they are available. In the meantime, we do have plenty of updates coming your way tomorrow morning with the forthcoming rollout of the Space Launch System rocket from NASA in the Orion spacecraft atop to create the 322-foot tall stack, which will be emerging from the vehicle assembly building, the door on the right. It's coming up tomorrow morning. First motion is at 7 a.m. Eastern, 1200 UTC. Again, that's tomorrow morning, Saturday, January 17th. Our live coverage, our dedicated live coverage, will begin at 6:30 a.m. We hope you're able to join us for that. That'll be the real kickoff of our marathon of Artemis 2 mission coverage to talk about all things regarding the mission, the crew, the rocket, the spacecraft, the people behind the flight as well. And we hope you're able to join us for the ride. The best way to do that is by hitting subscribe here on YouTube. Ring that bell icon and turn on notifications so that you'll be made aware of all the videos and live streams coming down the pike. I want to thank a few more folks in the live chat for your support this evening. Thanks to Amy Rose for the $5 super chat. Also thanks to Babs Jones Cachetta for the $2 super chat. Welcome aboard to Kim Ridley and the aforementioned Babs Jones with channel membership at the pad leader level, respectively. And thanks to Apocalypse Cow Boom for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships as well. Really appreciate that, Apocalypse Cow. Thanks for helping to grow our member community here on YouTube. Thanks as well to Kim Ridley for a very generous $20 super chat. Same level of generosity from 7-Eleven Dirty D, with the whoop whoop added to it. And another whoop whoop with a $2 super chat coming right after that. Lososos with a $10 super chat who says, looking forward to wonderful views from the San Luis Obispo area and the added fun of a sonic boom. Thank you for your wonderfully informative broadcasts. That, of course, coming from before liftoff, so hopefully you got those good views and the sonic boom that you were hoping for. And finally, thanks to Glenn Ashworth for the $2 super chat, one of our channel members here on YouTube. And with that, we're going to go ahead and power down for at least a few hours so that we can get some rest before what will be a very busy day for the team here in Florida. I want to thank channel member Cumulus Granatus again for helping to answer folks' questions in the chat, as well as to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, who's been running the technical operations of our broadcast this evening. Most importantly, want to thank you for wherever you've been watching from. We certainly appreciate your time and attention, and again, look forward to welcoming those of you who are willing and able to get up early with us, join us for the rollout of just the second rocket in the Artemis program. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. Until then, bye-bye.